Welcome back to the Bracketology update, and let's get right into it with Purdue at the 1 seed. Despite their loss to Northwestern, still see them as the best resume, but I could see the argument for Bama. We're keeping Purdue there for now. Then we've got the winner of NC State and Providence playing. NC State was recently ranked but lost at Virginia, but then rebounded with a win over Boston College, and Providence has some big dates in Big East play coming up. Iowa State was knocked down by Oklahoma State in that tough Big 12 conference, but they'll have to test the remainder of the way if they want to improve their seeding further. They're at the 5 seed for now. UConn stays at the number 4, still riding their great non-conference slate. And if this matchup happened in the second round, they've already played Iowa State and beat them early in the season, although this is a different UConn team at this point in the season. Then we've got Illinois, who just got the big win at home against a ranked Rutgers squad. At the number 3 seed in this bracket, we've got Marquette, who was on a tear but lost at UConn last week in a tough one there, a 15-point loss for them. Then we've got Maryland against Pittsburgh. As of late, Maryland has been hot, but they lost at Michigan State last week, but rebounded with a nice win over Penn State. They go on to face Purdue, and then it gets pretty easy for them as far as the Big Ten is concerned down the stretch. And then we've got Pittsburgh, who continues to keep winning in the ACC, and they share a portion of the conference lead with Virginia, but they're just at the 10 seed because their schedule hasn't been all that great. 3 losses to West Virginia, Michigan, and VCU in the early season, and then at Vanderbilt also are not helping them. So we can see what they will do with their schedule down the stretch here. They have a road date against Miami. That will be one to tune in for there. And then number 2 seed Baylor on a hot streak, now in the top 10, just beat West Virginia in Big 12 play. We'll see what they can do now that they're starting to get healthy. In the Midwest region, number 1 Bama continues to take care of business in the SEC conference there, just beating Auburn over the weekend to solidify their top seed status here. Then Nevada has been cleaning up, winning a lot of these close, ugly games against the top 5 in the top of the Mountain West, which is pretty loaded. They've got themselves up to an 8 seed and are pretty squarely off the bubble, so they have a little bit of leeway coming into this final stretch here. Then at the 9 seed, we've got Iowa, won 4 out of the last 5, with the loss being at number 1 Purdue at the time. Down the stretch, they have a away game at Indiana, but the rest is pretty easy in terms of their home and away slate, so we'll see if they can improve their seeding there. Then we've got Creighton, who is red hot in Big East play right now, winning each of their last 9 games. They'll go on the road to Providence on Tuesday, and then they also have a home date against Marquette, so we'll see if they can win the Big East outright after that rough start. Indiana is a team that also has been red hot and just squeaked it out against Michigan on the road, which is a tough place to play under any environment. They've won 8 of 9 with the wins over Purdue and Rutgers in a row, and they've worked themselves up to a 4 seed. They have a pretty easy schedule down the stretch, but do have to go to Purdue. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if they're in the top 3 seed by the time we get to March Madness. Then we go to Miami, who is taking care of business in the ACC, just got the big road win against UNC. They've now won 5 straight in ACC conference play. Then we move on to West Virginia, who just suffered the defeat at Baylor, but have been better as of late. They had a tough 2-game stretch in Texas where they lost to number 5 Texas and number 9 Baylor, but before that they had won 4 of 5 in conference. They have a pretty nice home-heavy schedule down the stretch with Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, and Kansas State at home, but they do have to travel to Kansas and Iowa State, so we'll see what they can do with that remaining schedule. Then number 3 seed Tennessee has caught the butt end of a couple close losses, but the computers still like them because they really shouldn't have lost to Missouri there, and they really shouldn't have lost to Vanderbilt either, but some bad coaching and some bad decisions late cause them to drop 2 in SEC play. That will be big, but they do host Alabama this week. I think they can win that one outright. And this is a reminder, you will have a play on that game, but please subscribe to the Discord. Click in the top right now to get all of our betting plays. We have action every night in college basketball, and we are up a stellar amount of units on the year so far. Then, number 7, Oklahoma State, streaking as of late. As I already mentioned, they just beat Iowa State. We'll see what they can do in the remainder of Big 12 conference play. Arkansas just suffered a tough home defeat against Mississippi State, but they'd won their 3 games before that and 5 of 6 before that besides the away game at Baylor. So they're still looking good in the SEC. They need to win a couple games. They're 6-6 in conference and have 2 brutal road games at Alabama and at Tennessee at the end of the season. So either those can be a blessing or a curse. Maybe they'll fall further, and then they'll need to win those games to get back in contention. We'll see what happens. UCLA was able to get 2 road wins over the Oregon schools in Pac-12 play, so they stay at the number 2 seed there. So let's move on to the bottom of the bracket, and a reminder that after this, we will get into the bubble picture. Number 1, Houston continues taking care of business in the American Conference, so no concerns for them there. Duke had a really tough loss against Virginia as the conference really rescinded kind of the final call, but that still goes on a loss on their resume. It's brutal. I didn't really dock them for it. Duke up to the 8 line here. Number 9, Auburn also had a pretty tough loss. It was back and forth with the number 1 team in the nation. They've had some tough road losses over the past few weeks with that Tennessee game and then that Alabama game at home. So we'll see what they can do over the rest of the SEC stretch, but it does get easier for them here. St. Mary's suffered a shocking loss against LMU last week, which drops them a seed line to the number 5. We'll see if they can remain borderline perfect in WCC play. They do have to play at Gonzaga at some point. Number 4, Xavier is a team that's been consistent, but just lost at Butler to drop them a seed line from the 3 to the 4 in my book. They next have to go to Marquette and then also have a road date against ranked Providence at the end of the season. So this schedule is easy by no means for Xavier. Missouri, as we already mentioned, took down Tennessee. They're playing really good basketball. DeMoy Hodge and co. at Missouri. Number 3, Gonzaga continues to take care of business in the WCC. That one slip up against LMU at home and then St. Mary's, but they'll have a chance to avenge their losses. It was a little close against Portland at the half, but they got it done in the second half to rout them. And number 7, Rutgers, one of the best defenses in the nation, but the scoring has been brutal as of late. They lost to Indiana and Illinois, but those were both on the road. They'll have another road date with Wisconsin before they get back to the rack against Michigan. Their schedule is pretty easy, though, so I'd say that they're going to be either a 6, 7, or 8 seed. Boise State at the 10 seed here has been good in Mountain West. Their only losses in their past about 10 to 12 games have been at New Mexico and at San Diego State. Definitely forgivable losses. They get New Mexico at home, so that's a tournament team, at Utah State and against San Diego State at home, so they can still bolster their resume as they are quite close to the bubble at the 10 seed. Number 2, Texas just lost to Texas Tech to lose their seeding down from the 1 seed. They'd been playing really hot as of late before that, but that loss sends them down. They also lost at Kansas just the other week. So we'll see what happens down the stretch in Big 12 play. Kansas has been great as of late, their only loss being at Iowa State in their last 5 after that 3-game losing skid. Looking down the stretch, they have 3 more ranked games against Baylor at home, and then they have to travel to both TCU and Texas, so that will be rough for them, but we'll see how they handle it down the stretch here. I have no doubt that they will be able to. Memphis has kept consistent in American play as you need to be, as there are only really 2 projected teams in the field here. Northwestern got that big win over Purdue and Zach Edey on Sunday, so this brings them to the 9 seed here. We'll see how they can respond. They have a few tough road games. Number 5, San Diego State's been consistent out of the Mountain West. A couple dings in their resume, but usually against the top 5 of the Mountain West, which is pretty good top to bottom. Kansas State just lost at Texas Tech in a pretty shocking one for them. They're on a bit of a turbulent stretch right now compared to that start they had, but they're playing tough competition night in, night out. looking at their schedule, they have another road game at Oklahoma, which will be very tough for them. We have a play on that one. But then they have 2 home games against Iowa State and Baylor. Those are probably must-wins if they want a top 3 seed. Remember, at one point, this Kansas State team was top 5 in the nation, so I have no doubts that they have their sights set on that. TCU was dealt a tough home loss on Saturday against Baylor. Again, they're very injured. Lampkin and Mike Miles, who is pretty much the quarterback of this team, have been out. So when they get Mike Miles back, this is one of the top teams in the nation. But without him, they've been really on a brutal stretch here. They could have really used that win over Baylor. Mississippi State, as I already mentioned, got that nice win at Arkansas over the weekend to place them squarely in the field here. Virginia also got a nice win over Duke. It was very, very controversial to some, but they do end up with it. They're in the ACC lead, so they're deserving of the 3 seed here. Michigan State has been playing good in Big Ten play down the stretch here. And then number 2, Arizona, just lost at Stanford, a perplexing loss as Stanford stinks, but Arizona stays at the 2 seed. They would have been at the 1 seed had they not lost that, but my goodness, that really knocks them down the rankings. I'm not really sure if they can still win a 1 seed here, but let's look at the last 4 in. We've got North Carolina, who was just dealt a tough loss against Miami, and with Ohio State dropping out of the top 50 or 75, North Carolina does not have a quad 1 win. They're 0-8 in those. Even that home win over Miami, if it came, it didn't. Would have been a quad 2 win. So North Carolina is running out of opportunities. They have a couple left on the road, but this team really needs to find their footing if they want to make the tournament. Texas A&M, similar thing in SEC play. I think this is a better team, but they have to show it down the stretch here. Kentucky was dealt a tough loss against Georgia, and Kentucky is on the bubble here. A lot of bracketologists don't have them in, but I decided to give them the nod this week, and then New Mexico's lost 3 straight. So the prognosis on any of these bubble teams is not good, but New Mexico did have some of their best scorers out. I don't know how much thought the committee puts into that, but New Mexico was without some of their best players, but they really need to probably go close to perfect down the stretch if they want to make the tournament out of the Mountain West. First 4 out, all Western teams. Will start with Utah State. They're very close in it every week in the Mountain West, but they, again, need to be stellar over the final stretch if they want to make it. I think it takes a little bit more for a Mountain West team to get a bubble bid than a team like, say, USC, Arizona State, or Oregon. Let's talk about these other ones. USC lost 1 to Oregon at Oregon, and then the brutal one at Oregon State to knock them out of the field. They have a couple easy games against Stanford and Cal, although we saw with that Arizona loss, so we'll see what happens there. Arizona State has been working their way back after a brutal stretch, and then Oregon split against the LA schools, losing to UCLA in a spot where they had to have it and didn't.